Thank you guys for joining our show today. I have with me David, Matt, Jesus, and Will. So yeah, thank you for our show. And today we're going to be talking about Batman Arkham Knight and why it's going to be rated M. Reviews about The Order 1886. We're going to go into a little bit of gameology, which we'll be discussing AAA games versus indie games and how those are related and different and makes them unique. And then we're going to talk a bit about our top 5 favorite multiplayer experiences for FPS games. Right, so let's start talking off with about Batman Arkham Knight and it being rated M.
Yep, I just found this out recently. Like, I was online and I was looking up ideas, and all of a sudden I was like, I saw it was like Batman Arkham Knight rated M for mature. I was like, that's funny. Those rumors again. Like someone's trying to leak something. I thought it was just a rumor. I thought it was a joke actually, because there's never been a mature rated Batman game that I'm aware of, and I don't even think there's a rated R Batman film. So I was like, no, it's a joke. The past 2 Batman Arkham games were T for T, and I was like, this is a joke. And then I looked up and it was like Rocksteady, the developer of this game, was like, yeah, like we're trying to tell a mature dark story, and we're gonna be uncompromising, and we're not gonna dumb it down and make it T for T. We're gonna make this the mature Batman experience. And I'm like,
so would you rather them start another saga and make that saga mature rather than finishing off 18?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it just feels so jarring. Like, what are you going to talk about in this game? The third one, the final one in that series, that warrants a mature rating that you weren't willing to talk about in the first 2, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, maybe they did want to talk about them in the first 2, but they had that desire just to keep it teen because it's a superhero game, and felt whenever they were creating it, you know what?
Yeah, I mean,
I wish we had.
I like what you say right now, superhero theme. You don't see that on many other superhero games. They're usually just rated T games.
Yeah, but if you think about it, I guess how many other superheroes could you make a mature story about? I guess most of them are.
The only thing that I've seen for mature rating for anything was I saw that the Punisher movie was going to be rated R, but it didn't even get a lot of success. It was it's a forgotten movie pretty much. I haven't heard anything about it in years. But yeah, it does kind of make me wonder, what would they put into it that would make it dark?
Well, if you think about it, most of the comics and superheroes, they do have like a really, really dark story into them, a really dark tone. But you don't see that in the movies or in the cartoons. They do it more of a lighthearted.
Yeah. Especially with the more contemporary comic books, like in the kind of the newer, like in the 40s, Batman, it was all kind of lighthearted. I mean, we've all seen Adam West's Batman television show one time or another, and that's one of the quirkiest shows ever.
But at the same time, every time I've played a superhero game, there's been that desire for a little bit more realistic blood and just a little bit harder tone. Every time I play one, it feels a little bit fake. Just you hit someone 1,000 times and nothing happens to them. They just like.
Well, I think there's like a market for it, like Watchmen, I think is like an example. Like,
that's
like there are mature movies and video games for superheroes. Like I think the X-Men Wolverine, which actually I think that was a misfit myself personally, but that's just me. That game was rated M for mature, and the movie was PG-13. But I don't know how to explain this. Like, I'm not against there being a mature Batman game. The only thing that I'm like, I guess it's just jarring because it's like, why is it all of a sudden that the third one's the mature one? Like,
well, they maybe realize that their audience is by far mature for these games, at least.
True. And that it's just, there's been so many funny things with ratings recently. You know, Bungie has always made mostly mature games with the Halo series, and then when they announced Destiny, like, because of that track record, I was like, it's going to be a mature game. And then also they announced, and it was T for T, and I was like, what the heck?
I didn't even know Halo was mature.
Oh yeah,
it was rated. It was rated T.
The first one was rated T.
Also the second one.
Really?
No. They've always been mature. I've always thought they should personally be rated T for T because they're not that violent or.
I mean, there should be E for me. What do they have? Like, since I didn't play all the campaigns, I can't remember them like saying bad words or.
It's not Teletubbies by any means, but it's
okay, you should have gone. Okay.
Well, you have enemies that run and they make like the little sounds like. Right.
I guess, but I mean,
so it's like.
I can't think like. I wouldn't let my 10-year-old play Halo because it's like.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of anything like.
I think it should be T myself, but it has always been mature, and that's where I was like, well, that's weird. Well, I guess it's mature, but...
I guess it was back then they didn't ask for IGs whenever you buy your games, maybe.
No, they didn't. No. I used to buy a lot of... I got so many mature games when I was younger. And then the government, they started cracking down, and they're like...
And then you just go get your mom to go buy the game or
Yeah,
something like that.
and then I did that for a while, and then they started saying like, ma'am, you can't buy this game for your son, he's too young. Like, then they started getting really smart. I was like, this is the morally right thing to do, but still it's frustrating.
This is
But
something.
now we're all like 18, so...
This is something that I saw the other day at a store. There was this kid. He wanted to get, I think, Grand Theft Auto. He was asking his dad. His dad was like, "What's that game about?" You know, "Oh, it's just this. You know, why are they asking for my ID and stuff?" He's like, "Just buy it, Dad. It's really good. Buy it for me." Yeah, I was like,
That's me, but you don't have to watch me play.
He's 8 years old, lying to his dad.
But yeah, back to Arkham Knight though. So, just conceptually, what do you all think could happen? Because I mean, the reason why I think it's rated M is probably either Batman is going to brutally murder somebody, one of the enemies is going to brutally torture somebody, or it's going to be something where there's going to be one particular scene. I think that's what's going to happen.
well,
it's going to be
usually
absolutely
when you add a,
tough to watch.
I'm sorry. Usually when you when they add like they rid up a game, usually because they add more of a sexual content, I guess. So maybe this game will have a bit more.
But that's a good point. But I just can't see Batman because as a
flirting.
As a player.
Well, there's Catwoman, so it's like...
Yeah, I mean,
there might be like rape or something, which would be terrible, but it's like there's a lot of things they could do. I think it is probably what you're saying. There's probably going to be a scene where it's like close to the end where it's like this really dramatic, cinematic thing where it's like the final antagonist and you would have this choice, like what are you going to do, and you like just tear him apart and kill him.
My guess it would be is just more realism with blood and with language. And some of these extra things, but I think they would cut back on the sexual themes or on some of the other content. I think they would be fine maybe taking it away if they didn't have to show blood or something. Or I guess if they didn't have that option to show blood and to be more realistic, like knock your teeth out and blood and stuff like that.
Well, I definitely would like to see.
There's plenty of games that like Uncharted is one that like sometimes I don't love it to death. I am a huge Uncharted fan, but like it could be. In my opinion, like it's on the borderline. It could easily be mature. It's T for teen, but I could see it being mature because like you shoot the enemies, there's blood and like.
But whenever I saw that trailer, I was like, whenever you shoot them, there's like just a little bit of blood.
Yeah, it's definitely not like their arms falling off like ah.
Yeah.
Robert Ryan, like
I mean, when you look at a mature game, you can't say like, oh, there's too much blood. This 16-year-old can't play this game. Like
how much more
Uncharted.
blood can you do than that? Like before
A lot.
it starts looking like ridiculous. Because then people start like saying like that's just.
It's just between teen and mature. I think there's just too big of a gap. I think I find kind of ridiculous. Like, oh, you can't play GTA 5 because you're 16 or 17 or even 15. Most of the things there, come on, like they're not that bad. They're not gonna change somebody at that age. Yes, maybe
I'm not
someone's
arguing,
12 or
yeah.
something, or 13, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
the earliest, but.
I honestly think that this M rating is not going to change the purchasing factor. I think just as many people are going to buy this game.
I bet if not anything, I bet more.
Yeah.
To be honest, because Call of Duty's mature, Halo's mature, Destiny 2. There's so many mature games. Grand Theft Auto's mature, and it's
Far
Cry's mature. These are some of the best-selling games.
Yes.
And they're not being played by just 18-year-olds. So it's still gonna sell really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not going to affect sales at all. Okay, now let's move on to the reviews for The Order 1886. So what did you guys think about it?
I haven't played it just yet. I want to. It looks really interesting, and I always try to make a point. I'm like, if I'm really anticipating a game, if I really want to play it, I say no, don't look at the reviews, just play it and just take it as it is, and then look at the reviews later on.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, like something came out and I was like.
They did the same thing they did on Destiny. They just hype it up so much and for so long that by the time it's coming out, it's kind of strange because it's getting to the point where we're expecting the reviews just to be, what this is an average game, or people saying the hype is ridiculous for what it is. It's a good game, but it's still not.
Well, They're gonna do that with like Fallout 4, you know. Like when Fallout 4 gets announced, you know that's gonna be the most hyped game of that year for sure.
And if they fail, I would be surprised though, because even with, for example, Skyrim, I think there was quite a bit of hype in it. It delivered, I think. I mean, just the way they're doing their games, even if it's the same formula, even if they recreate Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, just the amount of content it gives you a good game. Whereas with Destiny and The Order, the problem they're having is they're just having 6 to 7 hours of gameplay, and that's...
What I was gonna say is like, I think that's not enough anymore. Like, I think that would have been enough a couple years ago for it to, you know, like make Fallout 4 basically a better looking and a little bit better performing version of Fallout 3, and you know, because like you said, making a good game better. I think back then that was good enough, and I think what we're seeing now is that reviewers and critics are saying that's not enough anymore.
Like, give me an example of a game that has that amount of content and has gotten negative reviews. I guess maybe Dragon Age, but that was more because of bugs and other things.
Well, that's the thing. People, they have much higher expectations now.
But that's because they released it prematurely, and we can agree on that. Whereas if they release a flawless Fallout 4, people aren't not going to be complaining, because now that they've fixed the bugs, it's actually getting more positive reviews.
I can give you an example of a game that they get the same formula and they used it again.
Call of Duty.
No.
But so what about Far Cry though?
No, Super Mario Galaxy 2. It has the same format, they just refined it to a bit more perfection. It got really good reviews, almost like perfect 10.
It got higher reviews than the first one actually.
I think it's mainly about gameplay though. I would say it's more gameplay. Just the amount of gameplay. People don't want to be repetitive, don't want stuff to be repetitive, don't want to have bugged games, and they don't want DLC content to be released on the first day, like Evolve. So I think, I think if they were at least Fallout 4 with everything better, different story, I do think it would get at least better reviews than these games, because they put the time and the content.
Yeah, before I... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say, before I get back on topic about the Order 1886, I'm going to say the reason why it's going to get better reviews than these games is because it's a franchise that it's near and dear to everyone's heart, just like Elder Scrolls, and so nostalgia is going to... That's what I think.
Fallout versus 1886, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you made a good point, because I mean, one of my favorite games is Half-Life 2, but could you imagine that game being released now, the way it is?
Yeah, they would say like, this is pretty interesting and cool, but I think it would get like 8 out of 10s.
Yeah, it would.
Maybe that's why they're not releasing it, because they don't know what to do.
I mean, it's already released back in 2004.
No, I mean like the third one.
Oh, the third one.
Yeah, that's why they haven't released the third one yet, because they're too scared.
Yeah, they're too scared, they're gonna fail.
Because like David said, like,
it's all about...
hype it up. Like this, actually, Valve doesn't even have to hype it up. People want the third Half-Life so much that they've hyped. The community has hyped it up. Like,
they haven't even had to like
examples. Kingdom Hearts 3 got a teaser about it. People got hyped. Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
You got a teaser about it.
Yeah.
People are hyped about that. Star Wars Battlefront. Everyone wanted the third one, and they're getting a reboot, but it's the third still.
Yeah. So the difference, I guess, would be is that the hype is coming at least from the people, from the gamers rather than the developer or the publisher. Whereas The Order and Evolve and Destiny were all games that you don't know much about other than what they're showing you, and they hype it for a very, very long time, and they've been doing poorly, I guess, from the expectations that they're giving you. Whereas with these games, they're not doing that. So even though
but maybe you're right. Maybe it's the different formula that really doesn't work. Another example, there's a Nintendo game where the Intelligence System released it on Steam, codename Steam or something like that. I guess you guys haven't heard about it, but it's more of a strategy game, and it's a new franchise, and it has been like a little bit overhyped. Nintendo has been like putting a lot of reviews and putting a lot of like teasers and everything, but I haven't heard much about it. I guess ever since the release.
Yeah, because they're trying to appeal to an audience that's not really interested in.
Okay, I have something to say back to you, because I think the reason why these publishers don't have to hype the Elder Scrolls 20 or Fallout 20 is that they already have a following.
The thing
Whereas these games don't have a following, so they have to hype it up, because if they don't, no one else is going to.
I have a kind of argument for that.
But I think, what was I going to say, it was because it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Me personally, I would rather see more new IPs from big publishers than to just rest on the laurels and be like, here's another Halo, or here's another God of War, or here's another Mario. Because those are great franchises, and they already have the following that's going to get excited. The publishers don't have to do anything. But I just like seeing new IPs, people taking risks and saying like, let's try something new. And then it always hurts me when like people are like, man, that sucked. Like I just want more of the same. And it's like,
yes. The thing is, with Fallout, with Skyrim, you're getting completely good games like that are extensions, and I think the gamers that are followers of these companies we want you to make the same thing. For other games, it'd be different.
So you could say that the gaming community doesn't like new stuff, I guess.
They do, but there's different things.
They don't appreciate it as much.
It's something sort of like a comfort zone, really, because I mean, why try a new game that you haven't heard much about? That there's no like other games. There's no series to it. It's just this brand new, unique experience. Whereas you could buy a sequel to a game
and you can buy another Call of Duty that you know is going to be a good.
You want to play Half-Life 3, right?
I mean, if they announce it, I would get excited.
Oh yeah,
I love.
I would pre-order it.
Games.
Yeah, it's the same feeling for Fallout 4.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying like it's a bad thing that there's going to be a Fallout 4. I'm excited. I want there to be another. I want there to be sequels to my favorite games. It's just I don't want there to only be sequels. I want there to be new stuff. And it sucks like when there's new things and they get panned and they're like, well, this sucks, and then people don't try it, and so then publishers are like, well, that kind of bombed. We're gonna just make the same things over and over again.
Yes.
Oh yeah. That's where I'm coming from.
When brand new games are getting released and they're not doing well, it kind of deters developers from making new things.
Yeah,
it'll just make them want to keep making sequels.
The problem there would be on the developer, really, because then it just means you just delivered something very poorly. And most of these games, I think we can all agree that they have the general part of it. Then are.
Well, just look at like you were saying, actually, like the Order 1886 reviews. The reason why it has like a 60 Metacritic is because, like you said, like the reviews are all over the place. You get 0s, then you get 10s, you get 2s, you get 8s, you get 6s, you get 9s. What the heck?
We're not sure about this, but if the gameplay is 8 hours long, would you say this can be one of the best games ever? Give it a 10.
No,
me personally, I don't think time really pays much into it. Like, it's a shame that you're paying $60 for it and you're only getting that much. But other than that, like sometimes I prefer something that's short and sweet than something that's like 50 hours and I'm like, dang, I'm bored of this, but I'm just gonna keep grinding through it because I already started. I'm already this far. And does that make sense? Because we only have so much time, especially as college students. As we get older, we're gonna have even less time. That's right.
Yeah, but you also gotta understand that people are paying like $60, $70 for these games.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to have a lot more content, so it kind of makes you feel like you're getting your money's worth. Like there was this one game, what is it called? The Metal Gear Solid, the new one that was released.
Ground
Zero. Yeah, it was like 90 minutes of content, and it got a terrible rating because it was.
That was a very specific case where they were just releasing a preview of a.
But it was still almost a full price game. You still had to pay like
$30.
It was $30.
It was like half a game for like one segment of the real games.
That's a very specific case, though. I don't think.
Yeah, but I feel like if there was more content with it, I feel like people would. And that's why bringing back to the Order 1886. I mean, it's a new game. Don't know much about it. Don't know a lot about it, but it's.
People are gonna try it now because it's got bad reviews. They're just gonna be like, "Well, it sucked." I'm not gonna waste my time.
And it's kind of sad though because it's really just because it's a new game. It's an interesting concept because it's this person battling this greater
like Victorian Gothic werewolves, Arthurian legends,
steampunk. Yeah, I mean it's a gamer's paradise game. It just it's getting kind of
very creative.
For a first game, you want the universe to be developed a little bit, not just have cutscenes, and
it's really hard to do that when nobody buys the game.
But if you want to buy the game, then listen to the. Well, the thing is, this game is probably going to be bought more than it probably should. What I was going to say earlier is that Elder Scrolls Online, Elder Scrolls Online is the same people, and they made it. I'm sure it has like hundreds of hours of available content, or not even hundreds, but a good amount, but it failed badly.
Wouldn't that be a different case? Because you're having a company that's making solo RPGs, and they, I don't know, go to an MMO. That's out of their range. That's not something that.
Well, if you look at the Order, it was they were making portable games before they made the Order. That's another issue that I have with why would you give such a big project to a company that isn't proven itself in
Mhm.
Well, their
Sometimes
portable games were some of the highest rated PSP
But
games on
does
the
that? Why wouldn't they say, okay, we'll give you just make something, we'll give you an experience?
sometimes they just
because they deserve like it's like if you're just gonna if they want to say like, hey, we want to take it to the next step, and they're like,
It's
no, we're not going to take the
It's
investment.
like-
That's I don't
Was-
like that.
Was the order a big project before it was released, or? Because
Yeah, I mean, it's-
sometimes when they give games like this to underrated developers, it's because they don't really like feel they're gonna make it. Like, oh, it's not gonna be
Like, yeah,
let's just make it so
it's-
that to be.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes you get really good projects. Others you just get stuff like
Mhm.
mediocre.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next piece of news, which is we're gonna be.
Actually, we're going to transition to the gameology, which is going to be very on topic. So we're basically be talking about the same thing.
It just
We're going to be talking about indies versus AAAs, and also it's a theory like the order got. It's just something I've noticed recently is that these big AAA games for the next gen consoles have been getting like 7s, 6s, really poor scores, and everyone gets excited about an indie. Like that's interesting because it is interesting. It's different. It's innovative. It's like it's quirky. But they're really small and they're really cheap and people like these. But when you go out and there's these big AAA games that are being hyped and you pay $60 for them, and critics are really tearing them apart these days. I think like Rise got 6 out of 10.
well, not always critics, mostly users. For all like Destiny, 100 critic reviews, only 1 negative review. If you look at the user reviews, about at least 30% are negative percent. So
Well,
there's a
I think critics are. I still think critics are being more critical of games now, and I think that's just because we're getting more mature, we're older, we expect more, and but I do think the users are also. Should we go about this in this segment? Because I have a funny relationship with user reviews. Like, I personally don't trust them. Well, it's like.
I guess we should go with that.
You have to read like 100. If I could read 100 user reviews and they're all basically the same thing, then I'm more likely to believe it than versus one critic review.
I think users have the. I think I trust a little bit users more because critics are getting paid to be critics.
True.
The users are playing the game and they're the audience and they're supposed to be the ones criticizing. The critics, they can talk all they want, but they're being paid to do what they're doing.
Well, the thing, like, that is their profession. They are professional video game critics.
But if they
users
give
are
only, if
man,
they're
that sucked.
so,
Zero.
if all of us were critics, that we would have maybe a good amount of negative reviews. And if you look at a lot of critics, they don't even ever really review something to really give it a 3 or a 4. It's very rare to see those kinds of scores.
Well, that's because the critic is going to take into all considerations.
Yeah, their job can be on the line, so it's a two-way thing. Like, I have to review this game positively, and
If they had to review games positively, there would have been not any 7 out of 10 for Destiny. I promise you that, because that is a game that has so much money. Like, I don't think. There was this whole Gamergate debacle where it's like gaming journalism is the most corrupt thing in the world. I think it's just as corrupt as any other journalism industry. But I don't think that means like everyone's corrupt. I think there's probably a select few, but I would say probably 80% of most critics are probably just decent. They're doing their thing, they're professionals, and they know what they're talking about. And the thing is, why we're seeing more negative reviews is because they are getting older and more wise. They're like, okay, we're not just gonna like the thing about it, like what we were talking about with like just Fallout 4 is Fallout 3 a little bit better. That's not good enough anymore for most critics. So like we are expecting more because the indies are starting to outpace the AAAs in innovation. They're like really experimental with their gameplay. They're trying new things. And with most AAAs, you get Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare. I think it's a great game, but it's the same basic gameplay that we've had since 2004 with Call of Duty, or 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, I think the big difference with AAA and indies, the AAA they're given a project, and indies they just can start from scratch anything they want and twist it and everything the way they want it.
Yeah,
There's a lot more freedom with an indie developer, whereas AAA, you got deadlines to meet. It's
True.
The video game industry in terms of like AAA. It's very much turning into like the film industry. There's a lot of very similar aspects, and it's. I mean, it's kind of.
It seems like the publisher just takes the idea, and the publisher maybe isn't making the video game. It's just like, you know what, we're just gonna pump this until we don't get our money back, and that's what happens. I guess the developers, the original people that came with ideas, go somewhere else or start something new, or they have to be tied down by these publishers who really don't really care about original ideas that much, or trying new stuff. There's very few, like Naughty Dog, that are allowed to have that creative space, and
I think there's a few others, but there's not many AAAs that do have that that I know of. I think a lot of them say they do, but it is really tough because
the game pointing with a gun behind it, like you gotta say you have freedom or else.
it's like there is a big budget behind these. So I do admire those studios like Naughty Dog that have a big budget behind them, and they don't always they're not making near as much money as say like Call of Duty, but they're critically and commercially successful, and they're also pushing the medium of video games forward in gameplay and narrative, and I'm like, that's awesome, and I want to see more of that, and it's a shame that when someone else tries something new, now not saying that Order 1886 is necessarily like revolutionary in any format, but I just think it's like, this game would have been so much more successful a couple years ago. Like if it released in 2012, it would have gotten 9 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s.
Oh yeah, like if it got released like in 2007, right next to Call of Duty 4, Halo 3, and stuff like that, like oh yeah, it would be a huge it would be a contend, like it would be a huge contributor to the gaming series and stuff like that.
I would say part of why it got a lower score now is because critics are like, I am critical of critics, that I think users are asking themselves, why are games like GTA 4, I believe, getting perfect 10s, which it is a great game, but it definitely has certain flaws. I got bored like within, I didn't play the whole thing. It was fun for a while, but then there's just way too much.
GTA 5?
GTA 5, I think it is.
4 is what you're talking about.
4 is the one that, yeah, or other games like Destiny or like Football Manager that I've played, where it has like a 4 user rating, and then it has like 2 neutral ratings, and everything else is positive ratings. Like games that basically what ratings that are coming out from critics from games that you definitely know they haven't played completely, they haven't played through, they've played maybe a couple hours, and they're already giving a rating because they have that timeline. That's why sometimes most of the time I don't trust them.
They don't play the whole game.
They don't play the whole game. They don't even have time to play the whole game.
I think,
some of them maybe, but most of them I would say same thing. 80% probably pay 8.
Like just the intro episode, and then, okay,
I wouldn't be surprised, just because they have the first people who come up with the reviews get the most views and get the just get the most people reading their articles.
I'll agree with you there that the ones that are the first reviews, I'm like, okay, that I'm much more skeptical of those. Whereas the ones that come out later, and most reviewers or critics that I know, like say like Matthew Mitosis or Adam Sessler, these are people I respect, and or Colin Moriarty, these are people that say on record like, okay, our review's not here yet because I'm not done playing it, and I'll get back to you on that. And then they go in depth, and I really appreciate that because they have such an articulate nature that they know what they're talking about, and I really respect that. Whereas I feel like if you're going to be critical of critics and saying like most of them, and I'm not going to argue with you, I'm sure most critics probably don't play all the games, but I'm just going to say like, you have to be just as critical of users as well in their reviews. I think most of them probably are just like, they played the first couple minutes and they're like, wait a second, did Evolve have DLC that's $60? Negative reviews. Like, and a lot of these reviews aren't even taking into account the gameplay. Like, the Order reviews aren't even taking into account the gameplay, just taking into account the length. That is one aspect. But there's more to the game.
We talked about, that's not something completely different topic that we talked about. I think as users, if we paid for the game, it doesn't matter what you thought about it. If you paid for the product, then you can give a review, and you have to, as a developer, you have to take it as it is. They pay for the product. Why are they mad? Why are they happy? And take that. It doesn't matter if the gameplay is amazing. If you have half an hour of gameplay, like, oh, it's the best half an hour, but you know what? I pay $60. I want more for my money.
I think it's like very valuable information for any developer to say like, okay, this is what the reviews are for some content we create, whether you're an indie or a AAA, and to take that into account when you're moving forward. At the same time, I don't want developers to feel like they have to make something just to please people. They don't have to make something that's like, let's make this to pamper to our audience.
That's what AAA games have been doing.
Well, that's what they have to do, because like when you see new stuff like the Order 1886, AAA games are like, hey, we want to try something new. The developers behind these games aren't just mindless robots that are like, make trees, make art, and like, they're not just, they want to be innovative, they want to be crazy, they want to express themselves. And when they get that chance to, you know, a lot of gamers are like, oh, it wasn't as long as Dragon Age, so screw it. And it's like
They're underappreciated.
it's
it's a lot harder to give something new a chance where something you can trust, like a gaming series.
and it's a lot easier for a publisher to put money behind a gaming series that's already been established. Indies, going back to AAA versus indie, it's a lot easier for them because they just like, we don't have to worry about like getting millions of sales. We're just like,
Just for heck of it.
I would agree with you that it's true that people shouldn't be complaining if the 8 hours are great. However, because of the amount of hype and how much time we've been talking about it, I think it's understood that it's going to be a bit of a longer game. I would say that, just because of how much it's been hyped. If you're going to hype a game and you're just going to have 6 hours of actual gameplay, then I would say there is a mistake, I guess, in how you're either marketing the product or how you're releasing them. Like, sometimes they add a lot of content later on top of what it is, but just if you're expecting something for 6 months, a year, even more than a year, for you to get the game and finish it the first day.
Are you still bashing on 1886?
1886 and Destiny and different games even evolved probably just the amount of content they're releasing is...
So who wins, David? AAA or indies?
I would definitely say indies, hands down, right now. However, in years past, maybe it would be some different games. And I would say companies like even GTA has done a good job to listen and to, for example,
respond to you.
Yeah, GTA 4 was way too long, I think, just from what I played it. And I think GTA 5 has...
GTA 5, it's a little bit shorter than GTA 4, but I think it's what sells the GTA right now is the multiplayer. That's what's giving it a lot of hype right now is its multiplayer. Mostly because it's essentially, I mean, did you ever play Red Dead Redemption multiplayer?
Not a little bit, but
it's essentially the same exact thing. You can buy houses, cars. I mean, you can customize them to the nines. It's an online.
You can buy a car on Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
No, you just sorry. No, but I mean, like, that's what's making GTA 5 sell.
okay.
Whereas GTA 4 had a little bit of that, but there wasn't as much freedom with it as there is in GTA 5, because in GTA 5 you can customize your own levels, you can make your own race tracks. I mean, there's arguably a lot of possibilities. Almost, I can't say endless because it's of course not true, but there's a lot of possibilities and things that you can find interest in with this game. There's a little bit of something for everybody with GTA 5, and that's why
I never got that far on GTA 5 multiplayer. I was just going to the military base and
Yeah, and that's your thing. But like,
yeah, I guess.
As DLCs have been released, though, they've released this thing where you can set waypoints in anywhere in the city and make a racetrack, or in the air. I mean,
yeah, I agree with that. It has a lot of flexibility.
You can customize maps.
So, I would say 8 hours for Order would be amazing if it had replay value.
Yes.
I don't know if it has replay value, but if you can play it 3 or 4 times, make it feel different, and
play it again, so you can feel the experience more and more.
Okay, let me put it this way. I love AAAs. I will say, comparing the markets around, I wish that there was different pricing models than just 60. I understand why it's only 60 because they have to get money back. They put a lot of money into it. They need to get money back. So 60 is as high as it's going to get, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think like EA was like, or not EA, but like basically a lot of gaming companies were thinking about upping the price of $70 as the standard for games this upcoming generation, but they didn't, because both Sony and Microsoft went with a very easy architecture to work with, x86 architecture, 32-bit basically, architecture for the PS4 and Xbox One to make it much easier to develop or import between platforms. So if they hadn't done that, I think games would actually we would have less content for more money than we do now. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then that would give more power to the indie studios, because they would be able to say, you know what, we're not going to spend as much money, and we're going to make just as good of game.
There's still a lot of power for indie games. most developers or like big companies are starting to support indie games because you can make a game for like with a budget of 200 and probably make a success of millions.
Yeah, I mean you could.
So yeah, I mean I think for example Evolve was saying, you know what, our game is $150 and we're not going to release it because we can't, but if we could, we would. And I don't think that would have succeeded at all.
No,
there's a reason for that. So they can't really be asking I mean I think they're doing it because they realize, you know what, we want to keep that market and we don't want to alienate the users so much that we're kind of ignored, and we give more power to the indie studios that have the newer ideas, the better mechanics, the newer.
And the thing about like indies versus AAAs is, I think they're both the same developers, they're just in different environments. I think they both want to be just as creative, they want to be just as expressive. And it is awesome when you see developers like Naughty Dog or some other studios that are AAA that are able to be that expressive. And it's just like really heartwarming, but it's also sad to see when they're not and they have to conform to like the standard tropes. In fact, I've heard a lot of AAAs don't even prototype anymore. They just like, basically copy and paste the same gameplay. I think the AAA developers admire a lot of what the indies are able to do, and I love indies to death, but from personal experience, a lot of indie developers, they're good people, but they're really pretentious.
The advantage of indie games is that they don't have competition.
I would rather have
Also.
100 pretentious developers than having just a bunch of Call of Duties. I love Call of Duty, I bought most of them, but it's getting to the point where there's just no originality for me. It's just
That's the Order 1886. It's not the best, but it's something different, and people just say like, screw it, it's not long enough.
There's another point I would say that I think the reason why Naughty Dog exists is just so they can create content that isn't on the Xbox. I think that drives a lot of
nature of it. That's the reason why Microsoft has 343, so they can have a studio that's very creative that will make content only for the Xbox. Nintendo has Nintendo's retro studios so that they can have really creative stuff that is only going to be on Nintendo platforms. That's the nature of the business.
Yeah, but so that tendency, I guess, I don't think that tendency is going to ever be really the indie games, and I hope some indie games never get tied down to a specific company and they can continue growing but keep that, just be self-sufficient to releasing bigger games.
Oh, actually, when we had, sorry, go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say how indies are just a unique beast. I mean, we talk about how they don't really have a lot of competition, but I mean, realistically,
they have the most competition.
Yeah, they have a lot of competition because it's just, I mean, think about it, you could spend hours and hours and hours designing and developing this game and then like only like 5 people download it.
It's in the back store of the App Store.
Yeah, like it's very, very frustrating.
Well, I guess what I meant would be competition like in job wise, not in in game industry.
Well, no, because like these people, like if they don't make money on this game, it's like they're out of a job too, just like the AAA developers. If their game doesn't sell well, they are probably not going to get bonuses, or they just might get fired because they're like, okay, this game didn't sell well, we need to downsize. Who are the people that we are most
most indie game developers, or some of them are just it's on their spare time. They really don't have. It's not like the full-time job, so they don't really have to compete for a job.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's a good point. Like most indie games are hobbies, and only like the really successfully, the highly acclaimed indie games are the ones where the developers get a career.
I'm going to throw a curveball because I think indie games used to be very much like that. I think now that as we're getting older, or the medium's getting older, indies are getting older, I think this is exactly what happened in AAAs. AAAs, they're nice size, like I think 50 people was the biggest AAA development team back in like 2005, and now it's like 400, 500 people is the norm. So it got bigger because they had to say like, okay, we're going to make a game better than our last one, and when you keep on doing that, you have to put more people and more money into it, and it has to be a bigger game, but it has to be the same price. Whereas indies, the bar is really low in terms of like, it doesn't have to be the best looking game, it doesn't have to be Crisis by any means, it just has to be fun and functional. So, that was the bar, and so now they're like, okay, now we need to raise the bar, and I think what we're going to see is indies are actually going to come back to a lot of publishers who are like, hey, we have this crazy game idea, but we need more money because I need to hire more of my friends.
But at the same time, I would say AAAs are going to realize, we should put a lot more money than we do on writing and making the stories better, because we can't just focus on making the graphics better every time. because that's what they've been doing, and that's why they've gotten to this point where we basically have no story. We're just making it better graphics, and then
when they make it better, more,
And then,
if
like,
they put more budget into the gameplay instead, because if you make it on the writing, you're talking about
There's
story-wise, you're gonna have your A movie.
I think most of the budget, like in Destiny, was spent in the graphics. It was just on making it look beautiful and everything. And
Artists and programmers.
yeah, and
Artists and programmers.
and I think they don't need to do that for the game to get a better score. They could have. There's some games that are early. They're so great that they can't even be released with their full capabilities because they realize, you know what, there's only going to be like 10 people that can actually play this game because it's so advanced. And just that tendency is, I think they realize, you know what are we going to do so that they buy our game? And since they don't have enough creative ideas, they're just, okay, we're going to make the graphics better. That's what we do. Like,
didn't the person we were interviewing from Minicore Studios in Austin, like, I think this is actually what he said is, I think it is going to be something that is in flux, or like, well, it's something that's like in waves, or like it's in style or it's out of style. You know, indies are in style, AAAs are in style, indies being by themselves and no publishers in style. And then I think what we're actually going to see is indies, like the AAAs, get to the point where it's like, we got to be better than Super Meat Boy, we got to be better than Gone Home, we got to be better, and it's just going to be more and more expectations. And so like an indie game that releases in a couple of years is going to get a lower score than if it released now, and it's going to need more people to make it stand out that much more. It's going to need more.
The more it's exposed to, it's gonna be more common, something that's gonna like just face out, I guess. Trying to say.
I mean, I know you're saying it's going to take more and more people, but a lot of these iconic indie games are made by no more than 2 or 3 people. I mean,
Those rare cases, yeah. But I think most that are made by that small of a team are the ones, like we were just saying, that are on the very back page of the App Store that no one really knows about. And they're good games, it's just no one's going to know about them. But if you want to make it stand out, you're going to need a publisher to help market it. You're going to need them to help get it on the front page, on the featured page, so people can actually see it and be like, well, that looks kind of cool. There's like a little pretzel that's smiling. Play the game. And
I do have a lot of admiration for Steam, because they're starting to do that now. Like the greenlit or the early access and stuff like that, where
The access.
I have such interesting feelings about that.
We could leave that for another day.
Yeah, well,
that's something for another day.
just like everything, it has its positives and negatives.
Yep.
What we're saying though with AAAs, I think AAAs right now with some of the more recent releases, I think they're going to realize, you know what, we need a better story. At least we need some better writing, something else just other to focus on than graphics, because by itself it's not going to give us the highest ratings.
Yeah.
If I had that way, like I want it to be mostly gameplay and story. Like those are the 2 key pillars. Like I want them to be equally as important, and be like put not all of your money, but like a good amount of your money into those things, because to me personally, that's what speaks to me. Unfortunately, I'm not the gaming community, and I think a lot of the gaming community are. I know when I was younger, I was very superficial. I bought the first Uncharted not because it looked like a cool game. Not because it looked like a fun game. I bought it because it looked pretty. I got it because it was like, that's the best looking game I've ever seen, so I'm gonna buy it. And it turned out it was an awesome game with awesome characters, fun gameplay, and good story, and it turned out to be an awesome series I very much love. So like that's just an accident.
How long was it though?
Back then, I think it was, and the thing, that's another good example. It was very cinematic, and it was about like 10 hours long, and it got good reviews, like 9s, 8s, a couple of 10s. Whereas I think I don't know if the Order's got as good of a story or as good as gameplay, but it's basically the same premise, where it's short but sweet and very cinematic, and it's got like, people are like, I think most people are wanting good graphics first, mostly good graphics, and then also they want something that's fun, and
something that's fun
long,
with your friends,
something that's fun, and something that's with your friends.
Yeah.
So
you don't have too many games about
so
that.
maybe that's the problem.
That's another
maybe
thing.
if it had a
That's
multiplayer, it would be an acceptable price to pay for. Because I know, I guess, Call of Duty games, they sell for the multiplayer. Halo games sell for the multiplayer. And that does give you just that much more time to play, hundreds of hours of gameplay. Whereas, if you're only paying for 6 hours, then you basically are just going to sell the game back and never think about it again. I don't know. Just
Should we wrap this up?
yeah,
Yes.
we're just mentioning the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and.
That's all for Gameology. That was an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
But now we're gonna move on to our top favorite competitive multiplayer. Well, not competitive. Our favorite multiplayer experiences from the past and contemporary.
Okay.
Wait, is it restricted to first
Or
person?
just
No, I don't think it's first person. It's
Oh,
anything.
okay.
Anything multiplayer. It could be
Alright.
cooperative, competitive. It could be first person. It could be
Gotta lay out the
Portal. It could be
Who,
anything.
who goes first?
We could just go on a line. So do you
You wanna
what?
do rock paper scissors on the show?
Right. Please. 1, 2, 3. But
Total
Okay, you go first.
Total
I go first. Okay, old one. My favorite old multiplayer game is Age of Empires 2 because of the player-created content. The custom games are the most fun I've ever had in any multiplayer game. Just first time I ever saw the sun come up while playing a multiplayer game. I was like 13 on a Tuesday. On a Tuesday. Had school the next day, and I just stayed up all night.
yeah,
Awesome.
Alright, favorite contemporary.
Oh, contemporary, it would be, it's a very strange thing, but it's Age of Conan, the multiplayer MMO. After it released horribly, it fixed its errors, but by the time it fixed its errors, all the people had left, so it had a very hard time surviving, and I think it's still going on, but the community just fell to a very small community, but the content was the best I've ever played just because of how difficult it was. It had bugs, but the bugs made the game harder, not easier. So that was amazing to have to overcome and figure out. So that was probably the most fun I've ever had in multiplayer recently.
Okay. Now, I got a quick question for y'all. Would you consider Halo 3 a classic or a contemporary multiplayer?
In between.
It's so in between because it's almost been a decade. It's 2 years shy of being a decade for
So it's
Halo
been 8
3.
years. So I would say contemporary though.
Contemporary? Alright, well then my favorite contemporary is going to be Halo 3. Mostly because I remember it was the first time that I ever got my first subscription to Xbox Live Gold membership.
Yeah.
And I had this group of buddies that I would play like matchmaking all day in the morning and at night, or in the afternoon, all the way to like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We would play Infection. I love playing Infection game types. We would play Fat Kid.
The football games, all the...
Yeah, Griffball was a fun one. My favorite one was this game that we made, and it was originally called Billy's Warthog, but we misspelled it, so it ended up being called Billy's Warthong. And basically, we would have the zombies would run around at full customized speed, chase it, and you'd be being chased in them and you get to drive away in the Warthogs. And that was just so much fun. And we literally, like, I would remember just chasing around this Warthog as a zombie for like an hour and a half, just trying to get this Warthog, excuse me. And then I guess my favorite classic would be Super Smash Brothers, just any of them really, except for Brawl. I didn't really like Brawl, but
The best one. That is great.
Brawl was too floaty. But I guess Melee would be my favorite one. Just
Fox all day, Final Destination.
yeah, because it really just multiplayer is what makes it fun for me is to play with my buddies. I mean, yeah, matchmaking's fun. I could do that for hours, but I mean, I could play custom games with my buddies for days.
Sell it and smash.
Yeah.
Nice. Alright, so I guess one of the older ones, like my first older one would be King of Fighters 98, like the original arcade version. I remember I would go to, well, I'm from El Paso, so I remember we would go to next city, Juarez, over there, and we would like all hang out, like people from like the neighborhood over there would hang out in this little someone's house, I guess, because they had arcades there. And one of the most competitive games that they had right there was they had Metal Slug and other stuff, but like the most competitive, like we just see all people like all like go in circles around the cabinet was King of Fighters 98 because it was such a masterpiece of fighter game. And man, you like
Very balanced.
yeah, it's very balanced, and I don't know, it's just amazing. Like the fighting style and the characters. It was like there's a lot of characters. It's like the only game. The variety, the play styles, and some of the special moves. One of the things that I remember the most that I really loved it was that's the coin. I think putting coins in there, like that pressure, like, oh man, come on, put a coin. And like, I don't have the
Microtransactions.
Yes, be to the guy like, oh, I don't have change. I'm just gonna go home real fast, go back and
press that button to reset the counter so you wouldn't lose your spot. Yeah,
yes.
no, I
spend like $50 on kicking everyone's ass or something.
But I mean, you would get to play again if you beat your opponent, right?
Oh, it was like, they used to call it like retas and stuff like that.
Okay.
Whoever like lost, I don't know, whoever won stays. Cause yeah, they still stay in the other ones. The challenger, they put the coin and they keep new challenger approaching and stuff, and like the guy's like, oh, okay, let's do this. Yeah, those are some really good times.
Yeah.
People having fun. Yeah,
Okay.
cussing and shit. Anyway, and I guess my most contemporary newest one. I've been really interested on this game. Been playing it. Man of War Assault Squad. It's a really strategy game, World War II strategy game. It's very tactical. Like you have to rely a lot on ground and resources.
And management, you can be either management of territory and
yeah, it's about controlling territory, holding it, trying to defend the counterattack of your player because they might try to retake it or try to take a certain spot. It's positioning and it's really fun, really competitive. And
not really when you play against me because I beat you every time.
Oh, so I kicked his ass the other day. Like he was like, one more. Sorry, David, I gotta go to sleep, bro. It's like the sun's coming out.
You can't leave me like this again.
So yeah, those are my two favorite multiplayer games so far.
Oh, we should also mention like our friend Chuy. He's the retro expert.
yeah,
Like
strategy.
You just
Our
named,
strategy expert.
you just named it right here.
That's right. You heard it here first. My reporter, Jonathan Williams. But
You're fired.
my old school favorite multiplayer game, I think, was, and this is gonna sound really stupid because I played it by myself. Well, actually, I take this back. Well, I did play it by myself. I didn't play with anyone else. But what happened was, it's Killzone, the first Killzone for the PS2, and because the multiplayer maps, you can go play them by yourself, but you can have AI bots and you can fight against those.
Okay.
So it was basically like I was playing multiplayer all night long, but it was just against AI bots. But it just has, I don't know, it's like not many people played it, not many people cared about it until the second Killzone, but it's like, I loved it. It had such an awesome atmosphere, it had such awesome weapons. Like there's a rocket launcher that has like 3 rockets and you can shoot them at the same time. It was just incredible. Like for a young Will Hand that's like 2 years old, I'm like, this is the bee's knees. Like, oh, I need more of this. So that was probably the most fun I had multiplayer wise growing up. Old school. Now contemporary I think is Titanfall. I really like Titanfall. I think a lot of people have kind of abandoned it as it's went forward, but I just think it's one of the more balanced multiplayer experiences to release to date. I enjoyed Advanced Warfare's multiplayer, but like the cool thing about Titanfall is it's basically like you have the vehicles of Battlefield with the Titans, and you have the tight, fast-paced combat, on-ground combat of Call of Duty, and then a little bit of sci-fi from Halo. And because I love sci-fi, I love mechs, I love the nature of Call of Duty's multiplayer. So it was just like, it was a perfect fit for me. It was just so balanced. Like the fact that there's Titans and people and grunts and all this stuff at the same time, and it's that balanced is, in my opinion, a feat in Marvel science. Feat in modern science. It's just incredible. But that's just me personally.
Okay.
And if you don't
Who
agree,
doesn't like robots?
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, and then, so I guess that's pretty much it for the show today, guys.
So who
You
do
wanna
you
do the
who
party
do you
chat or
agree
just-
with?
Party chat? Oh, yeah, alright.
that will be too long.
what can we?
I think we're good.
Y'all think?
Let's do the wave.
Hold on, yeah, let's do the wave.
We forgot to do the.
Yeah, we just kind of kept going.
But that's a good thing.
We forgot to close. Goodbye, guys. Thanks for
Oh
watching.
yeah. We're gonna close out the windows. Hope y'all have a great evening, and thank you for watching.
No.
I'll just go on this.
So your favorite multiplayer game?